Adams.
Here.
Bartlett.
Here.
Cook. Here. Hopkins. Odenell.
Here.
Scott. Wankel.
Here.
Wormowski. Williams.
Here.
And City Attorney.
Here.
Okay, the first thing we got tonight is a presentation from Danny Kindred and Mark Leahy. The check they're going to present to the city from Parks and Lakes from their poker run. Correct?
Correct.
I'll turn it over to Danny.
Well, we, this year we were down a little bit, but yet I was really amazed with the turnout that we did have. Mark did an excellent job helping out, and of the, Don's Place, Coors Light, and Leahy's Tavern were the sponsor of it. And we are here to present you guys with a check that was for $3,000. So who do I present this?
We're going to let
And then also we held a little bit of money back for the AMVets that I'm gonna present to Jim Duncan here. It was $1,200 and some odd dollars, so it was a good year for us. And I wanna say, you guys have done an excellent job out there at the lake this year. You put that cart path up, and it's amazing how much that cart path's getting used. I happened to be out there one Saturday night about 11 o'clock just roaming around, and I couldn't believe the people were out running around on that darn cart path. It was just unbelievable. So you're putting some good money back into a good location, I believe. So I just wanted you to know that.
We appreciate all the support you guys have given the city, and that bike path out there, the cart path, whatever you want to call it, is really a good thing for the city.
Yeah.
We appreciate all the support you guys have given to us.
I want to thank these guys again in the city too for doing this again this year. It's amazing how much work and effort go into it. I was studiously busy with a meeting that morning and came out after it was all done, fortunately. But they do a heck of a good job. And as a lot of you probably know or may know, we're working with some other groups to build a new memorial here in town, the Iraq-Afghanistan Memorial out in the community park. The city's been involved and great help. And this is what we're raising the money for now. We got a ways to go to get there, but that's what it's for. We really appreciate Danny and Mark both and the city, everybody's done so. And that cart path is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Good job, say?
I think you did a great job. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, under the mayor's report, we have a presentation from Jacksonville Promise, and I'll call on Dr. Sheet there to make the introductions and say whatever you need.
Thank you very much. Some of you are new faces here, but most of you probably remember that I've been here a couple of times before. And last fall, I presented the fact that last fall's entry class for Illinois College from McMurray and Lincoln Land included 37 scholarship recipients. And my take on that was that was probably 10 to 15 more students than would have stayed in Jacksonville locally based on our previous 2 years and based on some numbers supplied to me by the colleges. And there were several attestations at that time by students that the scholarship, although it's not a major portion of college expenses, it was the icing on the cake for many of them, in addition to other scholarships they received that made them decide to stay locally instead of going somewhere else. If a student goes to a college somewhere else, there's about an 80% chance that they'll locate within 100 miles of that college. And Illinois College's data is that if they were raised here and went to school here for their primary education and then go to college here, there's a 76% chance they stay in this area based on their alumni data. So we felt that it was economically a big deal. My own estimates, which I presented, were that that class would add about $80,000 to the coffers in terms of return of taxes and a lot more to the economy in Jacksonville over the course of the next couple of years. Our class this year, it looks like, is going to be over 30 students of scholarships starting in just 3 or 4 weeks. And that should, once again, add that same amount. So over the next couple of years, those two classes should add about $160,000 to the city council's revenue. We're here tonight to ask you to consider helping us match a Tracy Family Foundation grant, matching grant, that will give us, they'll give us $10,000 if we can raise $10,000 in governmental assistance. They also gave us another $20,000 for matching from corporations and individuals, which we believe we're gonna meet. But I felt I've jawboned at you guys enough that you probably take what I have to say about the finances with a grain of salt, and I needed another set of eyes on the economic problem. And I asked the Tracy Family Foundation who would be a good economic analysis, and they suggested Robin Hanna, who was at Western Illinois University, and I'd like to just introduce Robin at this point in time. Robin.
Thank you. I'm not sitting here because I'm presumptuous. A couple months ago, I had knee surgery, and the doc said, "Oh, you're gonna be able to walk on it right away, and you're gonna be fine." And well, the doc, he and I have a difference of opinion about what fine is. My knee is killing me. So if it's okay with you, I'm gonna present sitting down. Thank you.
You gotta watch out for the doctors.
As Chuck said, I'm Robin Hanna, and I'm with the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs. We're at Western Illinois University. My office, the Rural Economic Technical Assistance Center, or we'll call it RETEC, is an economic development unit within the Institute. One of the services that I provide to businesses and communities and regions and agencies is economic impact analyses. And Chuck said, well, can you help us with that? And I said, yeah, let me take a look at it. What an economic impact analysis is how does a change in a specific regional economy affect the bounds of business interactions and household spending within that region? It's called an input-output model. So you introduce a change, and we use the M-Plan software to do the estimates, and it provides an output. I jumped ahead of myself, I'm sorry. Just so anxious to talk about this, I really am. Today we're going to do I'll introduce this, I'll talk about M-Plan, what it is, and then how it works. I'll give an overview of the analysis I did for Jacksonville Promise. Then I'll then talk about the impacts that resulted, or what the results of the analysis were, and then I'll talk about what it all means, and then I'll ask you, does anybody have any questions? Now, Chuck said I have an hour and 45 minutes, right?
Wrong.
No. He said I had 25 minutes, and I'll stick to that. And if I get too long, just wheel me out the door. Again, an input-output model introduces a change and looks at the change that occurs in the economy based on the dollars or the jobs associated with that change. There are several levels of impact that we look at. It's basically the distance from the industry or the change occurring. And the direct level is those changes at the level that we're looking at and the impacts associated with that specifically. Indirect is the downstream business interactions that occur that the change at the direct level demands. So that say a university or a college has to buy electric. That the electric company has to pay its employees and has to pay for power poles and wire and such. Well, those are the downstream interactions. And then at the induced levels is the interactions that will occur that are associated with household spending by the employees of the direct level change and the indirect or the business interactions. And that's relative to the demand, to the amount of demand. So say if we're looking at the effect of $1 million being introduced or $1 million being paid for something, the induced and indirect effects are relative to that $1 million. It's not, it will never be more than that. Okay, so we do the analysis. We have these three levels. We introduce the change and we grind through the process, and the results we get are provided in as annualized changes in a number of characteristics. That includes the output, and that refers to sales or revenues produced by a company or companies for goods and services. Employment. Now this is full and part-time jobs. So if I talk about 50 positions, it can be a mix of full and part-time jobs. We're not talking about full-time equivalent. The labor income, and that's something else. The labor income includes not just payroll, but includes compensation, includes the wages and salaries, bonuses, benefits, and social insurance and employment taxes that are paid by the employer on behalf of the employee. And then we also can report out annualized changes in public revenues. And this is provided at the state and local level as a unit, and then federal level. The changes that occur and the revenues that are generated at these levels within this region analysis. And then there's some others, but we're not going to get involved in that right now. All right, so when Chuck and I talked about the analysis, I said, how can we demonstrate the impacts? How will the Jacksonville Promise change the local economy? And we came up with three different ways. One is that Jacksonville Promise recipients will pay tuitions and fees that will support operations and employment at post-secondary universities and post-secondary institutions in Morgan County. A second way is that the students, both current and past recipients, will pay an annual expenditure for goods and services not related to education. And lastly, when a student gets an education and graduates, and they now have a bachelor's degree, they earn a big chunk of money more than somebody with just a high school diploma. And so we said, what is the increase in household income that's associated with the increased educational attainment among past Jacksonville Promise grant recipients that are retained in Morgan County following graduation? Okay, so basically we're looking at the kids that stay and get jobs and work and earn. What is the effect of the increased earnings and the increased income that's generated because they now have the bachelor's degree as opposed to not? Okay, so then we used 4 cohorts of students that are participating or have participated in or will participate in Jacksonville Promise. The first year was the 2016-17. That was 16 students. The next year was the year 1 and 2 combined for 34 students. The third year was the first, second, and third combined for 66 students. And the fourth year, first, second, third, and fourth year combined for 94 students receiving or having received or receiving Jacksonville Promise grants. Okay, now, so we identified the manner in which they would they would influence the local economy. We put some numbers to these. What are the impacts that they will bring to the local economy and will bring each year? And so this shows the level of support provided by Jacksonville Promise recipients in cohorts 1, 2, 3, and 4 on an annual basis. These are what we plugged into the model. Okay, now the spending that students will spend, that's based on a FAFSA, a federal student loan expenditures estimate that the feds provide every year to the financial aid offices, how much the students will spend. And that was $3,156 for a dependent graduate student. Dependent undergraduate student over the course of a year. So again, we applied these to the 4 cohorts and come up with these amounts. These are the amounts that are being spent in the local economy by the students. And then we looked at the education related, the increased attainment bump that graduates will have once they left. And that's $18,000. So somebody with a bachelor's degree earns $18,000 more than a high school graduate. Okay. We looked at in years 5 through 8. I'm sorry. Don't you hate it when you look at your slide and you realize, oh, there's something I forgot to do. So years 5 through 8, we looked at what the impact would be, and Chuck mentioned 76% of students being retained locally. I'm a pessimist. I said, let's reel it back. Let's say 70%, and that's lower than the amount reported by the Illinois, and lower than the amount reported by one of the local colleges. But just to be safe. So I said, well, what's the effect of the education bump on 11.2 retained students, 23.8, 46.2, etc. And I looked at the education bump, the $18,000 per household, and then also look at the impact of the total earnings for these retained students, retained postgrad, these retained graduates. All right, so these are the things that we introduced to the region's economy using in-plan. So okay, if we change the region's economy by adding this to it, what are the effects? When I built this, I thought this is a great idea. I'll use the first year and the 4th year, and then step it on down. And I look at it, and I know what that says, but you probably need to scrutinize the handout a little bit closer. Let me call on your sympathy here. Recall I talked about the direct influence. This is the support of the post-secondary institutions in Morgan County. So the direct impact, the impact of the spending for tuition and fees is a little more than $350,000 first year, $2 million in the second year. That will result in 5 jobs first year and 280 jobs being generated or supported in the second year. And then these jobs will be paying $155,000 total in the first year and $860,000 total in the last year. And then on down, this is the business interactions that are associated with that, the household expenditures that are associated with the direct demand, And then in total, if we look at the total for the first year, it's a little less than $500,000, 6 positions, and $192,000 in labor income. The fourth year, including all 4 cohorts, it's almost $3 million, 34 positions, and $1 million in labor income. Plus, if we look at this area here, these are the public revenues that are generated annually in association with the support for the local colleges. First year, $25,000 for state and local government, $40,000 feds for a total of $65,000. Fourth year, $140,000, more than $200,000 for almost $250,000 total impact, annual public revenues. Okay, so the next one was the student expenditures. This isn't very large because they're only spending $3,000 a year, but that money is being spent in the local economy, and that results in, this is a combined years 1 through 4. Total of more than $250,000, 4 positions, and $111,000 in public revenue. I'm sorry, in labor income. The labor income is low because these are retail and service sector jobs. And then, again, $53,000 in total public revenues associated with the student expenditures. Again, this is a comparative chart. I'm not going to go through these, but this shows you the impacts for year 1 versus impacts for year 4 and amongst the 3 different levels of effect and the public revenues. The third impact, the third influence to the local economy that's related to the Jacksonville Promise is the education bump, the gain in income associated with the achieving your bachelor's degree as opposed to a high school diploma. The left-hand column talks about the year that the bump occurs and how much the bump is. Remember the $18,000 for that cohort. And then we have the output, and it starts going up. The $203,000 bump is associated with $127 additional economic output, an additional 1 job, and $36,000 in labor income. Now that does not include the bump. So if you want to talk about the total impact, it'd be $239,000. So again, through the 4 years and the public revenues, and it's starting to add up. Okay. This slide talks about the total revenues, the total earnings associated with the retained student, the retained graduates. We talked about the 70% that we could retain. Well, for the first cohort, it'd be $560,000 in retained earnings of the retained students, graduates. Boy, I bet the students would hate that if I kept referring to students as graduates. The next year would be 1.2, then 2.3, then $3.3 million, and pretty soon we're talking about real money. And by year 4, you have more than $2 million in economic output, that's goods and services, occurring within the region. 17 positions paying more than $500,000 in labor income. State and local governments receiving $150,000 annually, additional funds. the federal portion, again, $150,000, and then $300,000 in total economic impact associated with public revenue in year 4. It's always difficult talking about causation, and I'm not saying that the Jacksonville Promise grant, the portion of money given to the student, is going to have all of these effects. What I'm saying is it's going to influence their decisions as to whether they stay and to whether they stay as students and they stay as graduates. And I work with communities all over the state, and the best job that I can do is to be invisible, to help them do what it is they want to achieve by themselves with our support. And that's the same thing as Jacksonville Promise. The best job that we can do is to help them succeed in the college by providing this nudge, by providing this additional assistance. And the additional assistance will have significant economic impact during the event, during the years they're in school, and during the years once they've graduated and are productive members of society in Morgan County. Did I zip through that too fast? Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Can you tell the council what other groups you have done economic impact statements for
Sure.
here locally?
I've worked with Bonnie Waters an awful lot here in Jacksonville. As far as others, I'm one of two consultants that the Illinois Enterprise Zone refers the Enterprise Zone applicants to for the economic impact portion of the application. I've done over 400 of these things in the past 20 years here in Illinois. I've done very small ones. I looked at the economic impact of a pharmacy add-on to a grocery store in Abingdon, Illinois. Y'all know where Abingdon is? It's south of Galesburg. It's one of those blink and you miss it towns. It's a great place, but this was a very small project. Now I've worked with very large projects. Energy Solutions, a multinational nuclear power company, contracted with me to do an economic impact of to do an analysis of the decommissioning and deconstruction of the Zion nuclear power plant north of Chicago on the lake. I did impacts for the EPA. I've done economic impacts for the Treasurer's office. I did analysis of their linked deposit programs. So I'm a known quantity in the state, and people still refer others to me if they need something done. And in addition to economic impact analyses, I also do other things. A couple of years ago, it might have been longer, I did a feasibility study of a retail incubator down here off the square for Jacksonville, for the Main Street program. So I've been involved with Jacksonville a number of times before as well. It might take some time to digest this information. I would welcome calls and emails if you have questions, or if you think I might have been too inclusive or so please give me a call or give me an email. Also, one thing we do, the Institute, every year when the Department of Revenue releases their sales tax numbers for the communities, we generate retail trade analyses for the communities and the counties at no cost. So with that, what these provide you with is an idea of the relative strength of your retail sectors in your community as opposed to other communities of similar size in Illinois. So if you'd like to have a retail trade analysis run for whichever community you like, Jacksonville, others, Morgan, other counties, give me a call and I'll run one for you at no cost. Your state dollar, your tax dollars at work. So, any questions?
If there are no other questions, if I could just make a closing comment or two. We, as you have noticed probably, we have grown quite a bit over the course of the 5 years since we first started collecting money for this. And we are now about to close our collections for the drive to sponsor this year's crop of students. We have until September 13th to accept donations for the matching grant. And Andy indicated to me that typically a presentation is done and then the council talks about it and votes in a different session about this. We are probably able still to grow some more in this community without governmental assistance, but to grow significantly more, I think we need governmental assistance. And if you are convinced by this presentation or the numbers that I presented last fall that money is actually coming into the pocket of the city council and the county commissioners in the form of revenue from this economic expansion. And the primary goal of the promise is the economic expansion of Jacksonville. That's why everybody got together and promulgated this idea to begin with. But the more money we can give these kids and the more years that we can give it to them, the more this will act as an economic engine. And if you're willing to give us back some of the money that we're harnessing for you, then we can grow the program more. So that's just the bottom line of my message, and I hope that you can decide how much you can spare to help us grow.
Okay, any other?
I have a question. So it's the same question that I had last year. So last year you weren't able to provide the figures, and this is our 4th year, so the first year, we're seniors now, right?
Yes.
So are you able to share with us how many of those 16 students who are now seniors are still in school?
We can, I provided them to Robin, which is how he came up with an exact number for this 4th year, the fact that we're going to have 94 students total, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And I think it was 14 of the 16?
Either still attending school in the area or working in the area. We've only lost 2 from that first cohort.
In the second cohort?
And the second cohort was 19, and we had, it was
Well,
still a large
34
number.
students.
It's a lot of work to track each one of these people down. 85, 90%.
Stay, or
Yeah.
still here.
And then the scholarship funds, is that just for all the college back in Lincoln Land?
Yes, that's correct.
So it pays for tuition from Lincoln Land Community College, from McMurray College?
It nearly covers, well, it covers, a huge percentage of Lincoln Land.
It's tuition and fees is all we are allowed to pay under our current bylaws.
We have a motion on the table to cover books also because the institutions handle it differently. IC buys the books for the kids and bills it as tuition and fees, so they get their books paid for, but at MAC they don't, and we feel that's unfair, so we're gonna vote at our next board meeting on changing our bylaws to cover books too.
Do you know what we gave in years past and what they asked for is for this year? I'm sorry, $1,000. How much?
We gave $1,000.
You gave $1,000 last year, was the first year you gave money, and
Right.
our ask this year is $10,000 to cover the matching grant.
Any other questions?
I just have one comment. I'm Dave Truesdell. I'm the treasurer of the Jacksonville Promise, and I've been involved for several years in the board. One of the things that I find interesting is that the community itself, the people in Jacksonville, have risen to support this project. We're talking about donations well in excess of $300,000 since we got started. And so the people many people in Jacksonville see this and believe in this as a way forward for the community. And I think what we're trying to do is invite you, the city council and city of Jacksonville, to take part in this, because we really believe that this growth will greatly benefit our community in the years ahead. And I think that's the principal reason residents of Jacksonville are putting their money year after year into this program. They believe in it.
All right. As Dr. Shue said, he was talking to the mayor. This is not an actionable thing tonight. This is just information, so we can discuss it at future meetings. And we appreciate Mr. Hanna.
Robin, please.
Robin?
Mr. Hanna's my father. He doesn't do
Dr.
it.
Chief, for attending, and thank you very much. And I'm sure, and I encourage anybody, if you've got any questions, make sure you got his information here, call Robin.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, city attorney's report.
I have one I discussed during the lease agreement with Jacksonville High School, so it was Part 9, and you're all familiar with this, or most of you are, I think. This has been in place for several years now. We've done tremendous improvements since the first got started out there, looking to renew the lease for another 4 years. Any questions on that? 4 years. It's only $1 a year. Okay. They continue to make it available to other groups as necessary. It's not in conflict with us.
City clerk's report, or any questions about Dan about this? Okay, city clerk's report?
Nothing.
Okay. Committee reports, finance, IT, and personnel. I'll take the first one to discuss the request from CCK Automations Incorporated for a loan extension, and Ron Smiljanich, who heads up that.
Well, I don't have a bad knee, but I'm gonna sit down anyway, so. I talked to Finance Chairman Cook, and he thought it would be helpful putting a little bit of information in your files. The request is in there, that speaks for itself, and I attached a little down and dirty explanation of what they are. Most or all of you were not here when this whole thing started, and I will keep this short, I promise. JJ and Sherry Richardson had an electrical contracting business. JJ started challenging himself and got into manufacturing. He had 4 employees. Got into manufacturing circuits and so on and so forth. His current building, the building he was in, was too small for him. He came to the city. Long story short, after a real long process which involved City Attorney Beard and a lot of people, the city lent JJ and Sherry Richardson $962,500 out of the security investment fund. Okay? That money, along with a substantial amount of their own money, created the building that they're in today at 500 Capitol Way. The little handout explains to you in a nutshell what they do, okay? 2015, 2016, JJ and Sherry purchased an injection molding company. JJ called it vertical integration, business integration. When business is not doing good, maybe JJ's real into that. They're real smart business people. I might mention that when he came to the city, he had an offer to move, I believe, to Kentucky. And he didn't want to. He wanted to stay here. So it's kind of a but-for thing, but for the city stepping up, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if his business is here or not, I'll be honest. Some facts about their loan. They've had it for 10 years. It was a 10-year balloon. Okay? You're not loaning them any additional money. They're asking you to extend the loan as it sits. They've never missed a payment or been late in 10 years. They pay an extra $1,000 a month on the loan, which Sherry explains in her letter. They have, over the years, paid in interest to the money that we've lent them, $250,000 in interest. They have substantial collateral, the building, and a lot of high-tech equipment, which we hold as collateral. They agreed when the original loan document was signed to create 25 jobs. They didn't. They created 100. Skilled technicians, design engineers, technical operators, good paying jobs. That's kind of the facts of their business. They've grown substantially in 10 years. Personally, I've been involved with them since the beginning on this. They really stepped up when Jacksonville really needed it. Jobs were leaving, and they created a niche for high-tech engineering in this town. They brought in skilled people. Some of them were already here in Jacksonville, a lot of them weren't. They have the technological and business acumen, in my opinion, to sustain they're very intelligent people. They have a keen business sense, and JJ has a mind that just amazes just with electronics. I visit their facility 2 or 3 times a year because it's cool. It's really cool. Plus, see what our money's doing. Now, that being said, I'm a fan of theirs, okay, but the city treasurer doesn't get paid to make emotional decisions or personal decisions on whether I like or don't like somebody. It's my position to make sure that we are using the financial resources of the city for the best benefit of the 19,000 people in Jacksonville. And I think that we have far surpassed their original goal. I think we may be all, I think Ron Kinnick was here, he'd obviously be very pleasantly surprised of how large and successful that company has become. As custodian of the city's funds, it's my responsibility to make sure that the financial interests of the city are protected. They've done that by the hiring. They've done that by creating an atmosphere in Jacksonville, or a perception of Jacksonville, that says these kind of businesses can thrive here. We have some help. Government's behind us. So it's more than just the jobs. It really is. It's a mindset. If you haven't visited out there, you really, really need to go. JJ loves showing off what he's done out there. They'll show you both sides of the business, the injection molding, which he brought in from out of town, by the way. And that's part of his 100 employees, but that added 30 jobs right there. And then the technical side of it, when you see pictures of it or you go out there, you don't realize where you're at almost. It's pretty amazing. So it would be my recommendation as a sound business decision, okay, to grant their request.
We just wish that everybody that took out a loan.
Pardon me?
I just kind of wish that everybody that took out a loan from the city paid this way,
Never late.
$1,000 extra every month.
And I will tell you this as a bit of, when they first came in, and this is no disrespect to any of these other organizations, they met with the city, JREDC, the county, and DCEO. And they all had great ideas, but we came up with the money. And we benefited from it substantially. So like I said, not as a fan of their business, because that's irrelevant in my position, but as a sound business decision, it's a good business decision.
Okay, there's no action on this tonight. This will be a resolution for the next council meeting.
Thank you
I
all.
just want to see if you had any questions before we draw everything up. If not, then it'll be a resolution authorizing the extension at the next meeting.
Okay, so, yeah, I'll let them know what the process is involved, and, so. I told them they didn't need to be here tonight, but, they are very modest people. They let their own results speak for themselves.
Do we normally do 2% interest rate?
Pardon me?
Do we normally do 2% interest rate?
No. But we normally don't have a company that has the financial impact that this did. We did 2.5% on 150,000 to an unproven business, which is doing quite well, for 15 years. 2% is not unreasonable for 10 years. Interest rates are falling as far as what I can get in investments. The Fed just recently lowered the Fed funds rate 0.25%, CDs will be under 2%. This is not new money we're loaning them, this is simply extending it.
Just
And
asking.
Yeah, most of our revolving loan funds are 3%, Ron, is that right?
this is not out of the revolving.
This is not out of
Yeah.
revolving loan fund, this is out of.
Yeah, but you did grant, Case Creek a 2.5%
Right.
for 15 years, out of, the revolving loan fund. So no, it is not a typical rate, but it is not a typical situation in my opinion.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Sean. Planning and Public Works, Alderman Scott.
Discuss professional services agreement with Hutchison Engineering regarding the construction of new roadways for the expansion of Diamond Grove Cemetery.
Thank you. I think as everybody knows, you've acquired an additional 8 acres of ground west of the current cemetery. It's currently underdeveloped, and we'll be putting together plans and specs and bid package for new roadways.
Any questions?
No slideshow.
Sue Hackett had a question. You had a question about the cemetery road?
I'm interested in the, one-lane highway, shall we say, it's got a one lane, but there's two traffic going both ways. Massey, is it a Massey lane?
Oh, Massey.
Or something like that. It's a little bit dangerous, particularly if you, see a school bus and you have to get over with one wheel and is it a county road or is it now, and could it be a city road with whole lanes in it eventually to come in and out of the cemetery on a better surface?
That's a county road out there, so the county manages the road.
Is there any hope of, well, maybe how about finding money for the county to make it a 2-lane?
Well, that would go through the county commissioners would be in charge of that, and also that road district.
Okay.
So the city does Lincoln Avenue up until the point where it goes into South Jacksonville, and then it goes in
Okay.
South Jacksonville, and that's kind of where you get into the cemeteries.
See, a lot of people are using that instead of going on Morton, because so many accidents on Morton. So it's a kind of a quick shortcut. Yeah.
Kind of the South Jacksonville bypass in a way.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Public protection. Lori?
Sure. We have 2 items. One, discuss Department of Justice JAG Justice Grant, Assistance Grant, and discuss partnership with ILETSB and the funding for training center. So Adam, are those both yours?
Yep.
So Adam.
So the first one, I'm not asking for any action on the JAG grant. What it is the Department of Justice has opened up bidding for grants, and they're grant specific for law enforcement activities, but you have to have a specific purpose for applying for that grant. All I'm asking tonight is like verbal permission for me to pursue this grant. It doesn't make us obligated to take it. It just allows me to start the grant process to see if this is something that we actually want to bite off. The reason why, it was just released on the 25th of July, but the deadline is the 23rd of August. So I need to move rather quickly with the pre-stages of getting our name in the hat. So like any other grants that come through, I have to have just at least your verbal consent to start the process. And that's all I'm going to do now. Even if I get my name in time, that doesn't obligate us to take the grant in the future. The grant, and for some of you, the grant specific, what I want to pursue is when I talked in the public protection meeting about the Garrison School SRO, this grant, if it goes through, I could fund that position with their match for up to 4 years. So I said initially when I came to public protection that I'd like to do a 2-year trial run out there. This would give us 4 years of analysis out there. And that specific grant would be for to those additional costs that we talked about in that meeting that day. And if we decide that the data doesn't support that it was worthwhile, after 4 years, we can discontinue it, and we will lose that other officer by attrition because it doesn't, the grant specific funds that position.
So it's up to the council here. Do you want Adam to go ahead and pursue this grant? Yeah. All right. Okay.
Thank you. And I'll keep you up to date as the process is going along, because at some point, I'll have to have the council will have to have review and public comment. So I'll keep you up to date.
The next one?
The second part, the ILETSB is ILETSB, and that's the governing body of the state of Illinois that oversees law enforcement certifications, functions, and training. They've been a significant help in helping us get our training center going out of the training center. What we have discussed with them, there is a training facility in Lincoln, Illinois, and it's the only one downstate currently that has and I'll try to describe this the best I can. They have what is called a shoot house, okay? It is a facility that is used for active shooter training. The facility would be the only one in this area. We would be basically the hub for live action active shooter training. With the things that are going on right now, we had reached out to ILETSB with only an idea. Is this a possibility? But since our training center is basically, we are fit for that kind of training at our training center. We reached out to them. They have offered to give us $40,000 towards that project with nothing it's not a loan. It would be a straight one-time cash donation to build this facility. We've been doing the research on it. We have not sent it out for plans or anything like that. I want to get the council's permission to move forward on it. Initially, we had discussed this shoot house as being a live fire, where you could actually enter this structure. You would be able to use live ammunition. Chad Moore and I have researched these facilities. We've talked to the experts. We've reached out to some Navy SEAL experts in live fire shoot houses, and we've come to the determination that we don't want a live fire facility on our property. But we do want a facility that will handle simunition rounds, which we currently already use to train with. The simunitions are basically glorified paintball guns, and they shoot a paint-filled projectile. But this facility would still be able to do the same function, we just would not be firing live rounds in it. And we felt like there was too much of a liability for us to supervise that all the time. Even though the facility, had we wanted to move forward with a live fire, would have been perfectly safe. It's designed by experts to handle that situation. We just decided that we would rather do it with the simunition type rounds. But what I'm asking tonight is for permission to move forward with plans and to see if we can fit within that $40,000 threshold that the state is offering us for the facility.
And all this would come back to the council any board.
Yes.
Would be voted on, so.
So it would be a separate structure?
Yes.
If you haven't been out to the training facility, and you need to get a hold of the chief, and I'm sure he'll take you out there and give you a tour of what it is that they have existing out there right now.
So just kind of an idea of what this would look like. It would be 40 by 40 concrete pad, and then it would be 60 by 60 concrete pad with a 40 by 40. It would have 10 foot on each side of a walkway. Then the interior structure would have a combination of 8 different rooms with doorways, hallways, basically like a building. All of those structures would be able to move. They would be on hinges and slides and wheels. So you could set up the interior to make different, basically layout. Every time you go in would be a different layout by the way that you turn the doors and the openings. It will not, it's basically just a structure. I'd have to bring the planning when I come forward, but again, to get the council's permission to move forward with researching if we can accomplish this with ILETSB's help.
Okay. What's the council plan?
Yes.
Yes.
This will also, if we get this facility, will make us basically the hub for active shooter training in the whole.
So you're gonna be training a lot of agencies.
Yes. We're already state certified, our facility is. Also, just I'll make it quick, once we put that facility in, because it's ILETSB funded, any training that we put on or offer out there will go under the heading of ILETSB, therefore the liability insurance would be covered through them, because those classes will be sponsored by the Illinois Training and Standards Board.
Okay. Get permission. All right. Any public comment?
There's quite a couple things under utility on the slip in
Okay.
before we get there. There's nothing
Nothing there.
done. Waited by Cal from Benton and Associates to give us an update on the boiler project down at the wastewater treatment plant.
Hi, I'm Ike Howe with Benton and Associates. I handed out a brochure from the Ameren, Illinois Energy Efficiency Program, has the word heating at the top, and a pre-approval letter from the Ameren, Illinois for the grant. So as part of the Jacksonville Wastewater Treatment Plant Boiler Rehabilitation Project, we applied for and got approved a $19,500 grant to install 4 new high-efficiency boilers as a part of this project. The money should be available after the boilers are installed towards the end of the project later this year.
Okay.
And also one more thing, are you gonna give an update or? On?
Apparently,
Never mind.
okay.
Actually, I have a question for utility. So is there any follow-up on the discussion from the solar proposal from last meeting? We're gonna do some, we're gonna talk about the associates about what was planned, figure out the math, see what's worked out.
They are talking and working on that, but I don't think we have anything to report at this time, Steve.
Okay.
But I do know that they have been pursuing it.
Because I think the follow-up after last meeting was that it was, I think, 4.1 cent, well, how much was Constellation energy supplies get?
Constellation?
Yeah.
5.643.
Okay, and then did that include the distribution charges, or just the energy
No,
charge?
that's just energy, and that's all he's talking about, is just energy supply.
Okay, because I think that was when we had the discussion last time, the Constellation Energy price was lower than the KID plan with the pure Ameren rates. But then, after the fact, I found out that we didn't figure in the distribution charges. Because you pay for energy and then you pay for distribution, you get like 2 bills. And I don't know, Skip, does the city pay like taxes, like other customers do?
We always pay taxes.
Okay, so I didn't know that, so, okay.
All right, if there's nothing else, we're gonna.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question, going back to the police chief's project. I think that's a good thing they're doing as a concerned citizen, knowing what's going on in the world today. And my only question was, and you're probably way ahead of me on this, but by any chance, has there been an outreach to any of the schools and where children are about the training, about how teachers, how to handle a situation like that if that should happen, or even store owners, you know, like Walmart and things like that, about perhaps training those folks as to what might be their best a way to handle those emergency situations, and maybe even have a drill or 2 or something. I don't know whether that's a good question or not, but I thought I'd mention that.
Let me address that actually. We have a drill in all the schools at least once a year. We have a comprehensive active shooter program that our guys go out and put on. We put it together as a comprehensive one to go out, so we're giving the same message to everybody. So one officer doesn't go out and give their opinion, another officer go out and give their opinion. We have come up with what we believe to be best practice, and that's what we go out in the community to do. We've been in most of the schools, we've been in a lot of the churches, and we even do business consulting as best practice as related to the active shooter. We actually sent one of our officers to an 8-week state and federal certification course to instruct active shooter and develop curriculum for the officers, not only in Jacksonville, but locally, so.
Well, thank you, Connie. I'm glad to hear you're way ahead of me.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and then we'll go into the.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Aye.